Yeah, and like I think some of y'all were talking about what does it look like to move past survival mode? What does it look like, like you were just saying, to be free from all the different ways that our humanity has been stripped from us. And so when we're talking about a new world, right, we're talking about living in our true selves, full of love, full of like humanness, and a large part of being human is the ability to grow. But when we don't have, but when we're like stunted by white supremacy in all of its forms, we're not able to do those things. And so the next question is, yeah, what are like the top forms and the biggest ways that white supremacy is showing up in Pittsburgh that is sort of preventing racial justice from being a reality.
So for me, it's that there's no more hoods. It's just out. It's just extremely blatant in what I have seen and what I have experienced has been. It's sort of like, how dare you even get upset that you are being discriminated against, or and the biggest thing for me is that the racism is no longer, white supremacy is no longer a secret now. The judges, the teachers, the bus drivers, it's okay that they let you know now that that's just how they feel, that you in their eyes are less than, or that's you can, sometimes that can be a heck of a scary feeling, to have your son or grandson or daughter, and because I know when my grandson, when he wanted to drive, I swear I did not want him to drive. And it wasn't the fear of he may go crash a car. It was the fear of he may get killed from driving his car. So for me, it is that here now it is it's no secrets now. It's extremely visible. It's extremely bold and unapologetic.
Yeah, I think it was Toni Morrison who said that the greatest function of racism is distraction, right? And I think about that, and I'm thinking about like the study that we've all seen and all read that was commissioned, and this was a nationally recognized study. There have been pieces, there's been conversation, that sprung from it. But I'm thinking, all the hours that went into doing that, all the hours that went into proving that Pittsburgh is as racist as we already know that it is. Yeah. And it's great to have data that validates, the emotional, the anecdotal, whatever, but just thinking about, talking about white supremacy, talking about racism, but just think of that effort didn't have to exist in that manner. Like all the time and all the space, all the, I guess, the emotional labor that would be free when you don't have to do shit like that. When you don't have to have these studies to show everyone how racist it already is. If you don't have to spend time explaining yourself and searching for these forms of validation, and doing all these things that racism kind of compels you to do, and also being black in Pittsburgh and being gaslit, where we exist in this city that gets these laws for being the most livable, the new Brooklyn, the next Seattle, the Starbucks is Austin, wherever the fuck. And so that exists, but those disparities also exist for us. And I've joked about this before, but what Pittsburgh is Wakanda for white people, where it's like this, it's that utopia that you were just talking about, but not for us. And so white supremacy, racism, I just think of how, I don't know, how it's just in the way. And you just sometimes just want, like, just move the fuck out the way. Like, I'm trying to do things, I'm trying to live, I'm trying to exist, and you're just distracting me from, you're trying to stop me from doing the stuff that I was placed here to do. And you know, it's the great distractor. It's like an annoying little sister, but that little sister has like a gun. I mean, it's a terrible analogy. Terrible imagery. Come back to me like 15 minutes later, I'll think of a better analogy, but you get what I'm trying to say.
I'll add that I think white supremacy shows up in places where we lack representation. I can talk about all of the institutions. I can even talk about the institution that I work for now and past institutions that I've worked for. That we need more Black people, we need more people of color in higher positions. The saying you have a Rooney Rule is not enough. And that's part of the reason why I made the decision to go back to school and get my doctorate, because someone took me to the side and said, it's important for you, Darren, to be a representation or representative of Black excellence, and this is coming from another Black PhD, we need you to go ahead and do this, because I really didn't want to. But white supremacy shows up in the trade unions here, white supremacy shows up in the Fortune 500 companies here, and if corporations and if institutions really are serious about equity and inclusion and social justice, they will do whatever it takes to make sure that they're interviewing fairly across the board, that they're recruiting fairly across the board, and that they're opening up opportunities for everybody to be included.
Can I say one more thing that I want to say about what's wrong and also racism? When in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, what happens with our political arena? If you notice, there was about 7 different last names that stay in office. They just stay in office. Okay? And then when they're done, it goes down to their son or their daughter or their cousin or their, you know, that's real. It's wrong, and that's a sign of racism, because that is a bold attempt of your kind of ideas and your kind of people is not wanted. And so we have to, my biggest thing, as I always tell everybody, just take the seat, run, everybody run, just everybody run. Because I strongly believe that the last panel that was up here, I couldn't get the link, but my one question was, everybody that was sitting here, how many people of Black people work in your office? How many people of color work in your office? And how many people with colorful backgrounds work in your office? And if you say 0 to any of them, in this 220 agenda, what is the progress of you completing that to make it happen? You know, so, because what happens is when we, especially our people with colorful backgrounds, we're always asked to come and speak and come and knock doors or come and hire us.
Like, what are the biggest ways that it shows up that prevents us from, experiencing this world that we're talking about?
I want to say it shows up in policy. Corporations informing policy. It shows up in privatized prisons. It shows up in our children's schools with the school to prison pipeline, and 6-year-olds being handcuffed, 6-year-old Black children being handcuffed. And I make it clear because I don't see that anywhere else happening to people's children. And if it ever does, I don't see it being normalized as it is in the Black community.
It shows up in the guise of public safety. It shows up on your job when, as a black woman, people steal your ideas and don't give you credit for it.
Amen.
They'll get a ton of money for it. It shows up just about anywhere you can step, especially as a black person. It also shows up in your home, which is the one place I try to keep it out of. But somebody alluded to something that I think is very real, that people don't think about. We're talking about humanity. My son is 25 years old. He is a legal gun carrier, which I can't say I like, but because it scares the heck out of me. That he is young, 25, hip hop culture, and loves to hang out with his friends and drives. And in my home, I have to sit him down and have conversations with him that I know no white mother has to have for her son. It shows up in my home. And so white supremacy shows up in many places, from, executive suites down to your neighborhood corner store, where people can't even walk in to buy things anymore if you're black. And so, the question before was, what would it look like if we had a very different world? And now we're talking about ways that white supremacy shows up. It's very difficult to imagine a world without it because it is everywhere. And it's also ignored. It's accepted. And it's taught by the reactions of those in power that it's okay. And more, and it's not just because of Trump, right? We want to blame Trump. Trump is a product of white supremacy. He didn't create it. And, we give him too much credit. We really do. But it has been here. And what I think Trump has done is allow people who never would work together or speak to do so. It has allowed people to see the reality, that wanted to be blind, that wanted to make every excuse they possibly could, to no longer have one. And so, beyond white supremacy being everywhere, I just would like to know, what you are doing about it.